When people think of martial arts, they most likely picture the most popular forms such as Kung Fu, Karate, Judo, and Jiu-Jitsu. While the popularity of these martial arts is widespread throughout the world, thanks in large part to movies and television, they are fairly recent in the history of martial arts. There are several lesser-known martial arts that are still practiced today, with history stretching all the way back to the earliest human civilizations. In many cases, it is hard to provide an accurate date of origin for a particular martial art as human records don't exist from the early human history. Martial arts have enthralled and astounded us for millennia. Despite having roots that date back to prehistoric times, to this day there are few activities that are better placed to keep us in shape, while helping its students to learn how to defend themselves in combat situations. But what exactly was the first recorded martial art? It's perhaps easy to cast our minds to the Shaolin-inspired approaches of Kung Fu and Japan's karate, but the first applications of organized martial arts have traceable origins that date all the way back to around 3000 BC and earlier. Amazingly, many of the disciplines we see depicted in early illustrations and sculptures cast martial arts in a familiar light, with varied interpretations cropping up all over the Eastern Hemisphere. As you might expect, it's a little tricky to pinpoint the exact earliest starting point of a recognizable martial art, so it's important to take a look at the validity of some of the prime contenders for the accolade. However, history has thrown up a healthy amount of evidence to give us a strong idea of which disciplines came first and where they were most popular. So let's take a dive into the rich and varied world of ancient martial arts and explore the three that have the strongest case for being the very first of their kind. Earliest combat sports. Naturally, the very oldest form of martial arts stems from interpretations of wrestling or grappling. Judging by ancient evidence, early human artwork regularly depicts some form of combat and physical dueling, meaning that although its specific data of origin will always be hard to pinpoint, wrestling has to be considered the very oldest combat sport in the world. Wrestling was particularly popular in ancient Greece and was a fixture among the earliest Olympiads. Papyrus has even been found dating back to the 2nd century BC detailing instructions on how to wrestle, making it the oldest martial arts manual ever found in Europe. While there's little doubt that wrestling has existed for just about as long as humanity itself, it feels a little bit too vague to recognize as the first martial art on this list. It's a scintillating and highly tactical Olympic sport today, but there are many ancient approaches to combat that were intrinsically developed that survive today, and are very deserving of their own recognition. It's also worth highlighting the art of boxing as one of the earliest combat sports known to man. With the earliest depictions of the sport dating back to the approximate geographic location of northern Iraq back in 3000 BC, the simplicity of boxing has held appeal for over 5,000 years, evolving into the complex tactical battles we see today. Much like wrestling, boxing was a standard feature of the early Olympiads of ancient Greece. Mallayuddha, one of the first recorded martial arts, away from the Olympic sports of wrestling and boxing, we find the legendary art of Mallayuddha, a combat sport that became hugely popular in the southern Asian nations of India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka and Nepal at around 3000 BC. The beauty of Mallayuddha stems from its heritage as well as application. The story of Mallayuddha stems from Batting, the hero of Malay legend, who is said to have developed superhuman strength through the practice of Mallayuddha. Mallayuddha enjoyed widespread popularity for centuries prior to the Muslim conquest of India in the Middle Ages, and was practiced all across India, by both kings and peasants alike. In some cases, kings would seek to settle conflicts by pitting royal wrestlers against each other to engage in Mallayuddha. There's even evidence that kings themselves would sometimes fight each other in this way. During its peak, high-profile tournaments would be set up within palace courtyards with relatively huge prize pools available to winners. The competition format welcomed a range of competitors, from casuals to the professionals of the time in their attempts at taking home the prize money. Elite members of society were even known to hire wrestlers on their behalf in a bid to further increase the magnitude of the occasion, which would often feature other performances for spectators. Impressively for the time, there was a considerable number of professional wrestlers engaged in Mallayuddha. Such athletes would dedicate themselves fully to the martial art, and living under the constant supervision of their own guru. Mallayuddha training regimes for professionals would involve a strict training regime that demanded full abstention from both alcohol and sexual contact as a means of keeping their bodies pure for their profession. In some cases, affluent members of society would sponsor wrestlers, funding their careers. The approach of Mallayuddha is divided into 4 styles, each of which are named after Hindu gods. Hanumanti focuses on technical superiority, Jambuvanti is emphasized by the locks and holds used by competitors, Jarasandhi references the breaking of limbs and joints, while Bhimaseni refers to the sheer strength that fighters showcase. Sadly, Mallayuddha's popularity dwindled throughout South Asia following the Muslim conquest of India in the 16th century, but the martial art is still enjoyed to this day in some areas of the continent. Shui Jiao, one of the first recorded Chinese martial arts. When it comes to ancient martial arts, China may well be the first nation you'd think of. Sure enough, the ancient Chinese art of Shui Jiao can be recognized as a serious contender for the oldest form of combat sport in the world. Known, rather reductively, as Chinese wrestling in English, Shui Jiao is considered the oldest of all China's martial arts. The first recorded instance of the sport, which was earlier known as JOT, dates all the way back to 3697 BC, when the legendary Yellow Emperor fought against Qiyu. Unsurprisingly, Shui Jiao has undergone many evolutions since the days of ancient China, and its former incarnation Jiao Ti soon became known as Jiao Li, a combat-based wrestling sport that was adapted for military usage throughout the Zhou dynasty, which lasted between the years 1122 BC and 256 BC. The later Qin dynasty of 221 BC to 207 BC was eager to embrace Jiao Li too, and the most proven combatants were typically selected to act as the emperor's bodyguards. In a fitting echo of this ancient tradition, Shui Jiao is regularly taught in the Chinese police academies and military training centers to this day. Many of the earliest recognized martial arts were developed as regional interpretations of wrestling or grappling, with boxing also an ever-present feature. However, there were plenty more ancient combat sports cropping up at the same time which carried an emphasis on the implementation of other techniques. Pankration, an ancient Greek martial art. Notably, the art of pankration, developed in ancient Greece around 4,000 years ago, sought to combine wrestling with boxing, and also allowed kicking to take place. Although its name may not be familiar, pankration is commonly associated with the legend of Hercules, who used the martial art to fight the Nemean lion and Theseus, as well as the Minotaur. Today, the increasingly popular sport of mixed martial arts carries very similar qualities to pankration. Although it's rare to hear the names of these once wildly popular ancient sports uttered around the world's gyms and pantheons, much of the essence of Mallayuddha, Shui Jiao and pankration survive to this day. The type of competitions and defense training in which they were developed remain very similar too. Art of Coldszn boxing documentary directed by Jalen Davis. Since it all started, there have been hundreds of styles of martial arts, so many different styles, variations, and techniques. Those who devote their lives to martial arts become some of the most successful practitioners there are. It's important to know and understand your strengths and weaknesses, because it can mean life or death in certain situations. Through various studies, striking has been the most sufficient means to protect yourself when someone is trying to harm you or a loved one. Boxing is a great way to learn how to defend yourself. Boxing itself is misunderstood as just a sport, but it is in fact not just a sport. It is a form of martial art which requires discipline, patience, and constant application. Some would consider it a way of life. Martial arts is the perfect way to find out a lot about yourself. Martial arts is a true test of time. Martial arts has no race. Martial arts has no age limit. Whichever martial art you choose, dedicate yourself and take it seriously. What you learn can be taught and passed down to generations. The art of Coldszn originated in Northern California by the Wintry Blue Moon clan. The art of Coldszn is a variation of boxing that favors an ambidextrous stance, where your combos are unreadable, where defending yourself with superb calculated striking is key. The art of Coldszn is a way of life. Just like every other martial art, it will require great discipline, a desire to get stronger, application through trial and error. The art of Coldszn gets its power through hard work and the favor of the Holy Spirit. One must practice and pray every single day. That way it becomes a way of life. Only then will you start to transcend. Remain humble and respectful, to use wisely. The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked advance against me to devour me, it is my enemies and my foes who will stumble and fall. Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident. Psalms chapter 27 verses 1-3. The art of Coldszn is a journey. Martial arts practitioners all across the globe practice their skills. Styles make fights. Determination and mindset will set you apart. You are only as good as the work you put in. Enjoy the journey. Official JD, the master practitioner of the art of Coldszn, the coldest G, a Coldszn baby, a legend. I want his babies. Yes, Lord. Please forgive me, as I was mesmerized and put in a trance. Let's get back on track. The art of Coldszn boxing is not for those mentally weak. Physicality can be improved, the application. Mentality comes from within. It's not something that can be taught. Those who are chosen have a responsibility and a duty to carry out its tasks. It's a new day and age. So many new faces wanting to get into boxing. Boxing isn't a game. It takes discipline and respect. You must have the desire to get better. The art of Coldszn thrives on work ethic, determination, dedication, and consistency. The Coldszn organization has been around for ages. Practitioner Official JD is on the rise to take the art of Coldszn to a new level. To support the cause, you can go to coldszn.com, where clothing merch is available. 10% of each sale goes to our Feed the Homeless program. We appreciate all the support. Ladies and gentlemen, the art of Coldszn.